Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video I'll show you how to knit this brush out mohair vest. I hope you will enjoy it, and if you do, don't forget to hit subscribe, like this video, and let's get into it. Now to make this vest I will be using 5 different colors, and I have them winded up into 2 balls because it's gonna be doubled. Depending on how you have your yarn, you can either wind it up into 2, or you can also pull on center as well as outside, this way doubling it up. It is up to you how many colors you want to use. You can use single color or as many as you want. I'm gonna be having 5. You will then need 4mm needles as well as 4.5, stitch marker, scissors, and needle. And I will be using 40cm as well as 60cm cable. The 61 is for the waist and 40cm is for the armhole and collar ribbing. Now before you go ahead and cast on, you will need to do a gauge swatch and see how many stitches you will need for your waist, because this is a bottom up vest. I'm gonna put my gauge here, and for the bottom ribbing I'm gonna be using 4mm needles with 40cm cable because it's gonna be tied at the beginning, but I'm gonna switch it to 60cm ones later on, and I'm gonna use this orange color. To cast on, you want to make a slip knot, have plenty of long tail, and cast on multiples of 4 because this is going to be 2x2 ribbing. To cast on, you grab your yarn like this and cast on number that you need. I'm gonna be casting on 200, and if you do want to follow the same, you can find measurements of mine in description down below. Now once you have casted on any number that's multiple of 4, you're gonna cast on an extra one, which we will lose when we join it in a round, like so. So an extra one on top of your multiple of 4. Then before you join it in a round, you want to make sure that your stitches aren't twisted so that they do lay flat on one side. Mines are curling a bit, but I know it's straight. Basically what you don't want to see is your stitches being turned like this. So make sure they are in that one way. And now to join it in a round, you're gonna go purlwise into your first stitch on left needle, grab it like so. Then with your left needle, grab the second stitch that's on your right needle or the first one here. So grab that and you want to bring it over like this. And then you can drop this one off. So that's now joining around. I'm just gonna grab my stitch back on the left needle and I'm gonna tighten everything up. Then you want to put a stitch marker to mark beginning of the round, and from here we're gonna work knit 2, purl 2, and repeat. So I'm gonna go as to knit into my first stitch, yarn over, come back and drop the stitch off. Same thing with my second one, go as to knit, yarn over and drop the stitch. Now for the purls, I'm gonna bring my tail forward, go as to purl, yarn over, drop the stitch, and again go as to purl, like so. Now just to show you one more time, for the knit you want your yarn in the back, go as to knit, so that's 1, 2, and now for the purls, bring the tail forward, go as to purl, that's 1 and 2. And I'm gonna be repeating this all around. And if you do have correct amount of stitches, your row will end with 2 purls because you started with 2 knits. So do this all around and I will meet you at the end. Once you finished your first round, just transfer your stitch marker over and make sure that your row ended with 2 purls here. And now you're gonna repeat this row until you're happy how long your ribbing is. And basically you're gonna be knitting your knit stitches and purling your purls. Now how to know where your knits are and where your purls are. So I already know that these are knits, these 2 are purls. If you do look closely, you'll see that the purls have these horizontal bars, while knits are just these. It's kind of hard to see now, but knits are just these little V's, while purls are those horizontal bars. So you are always gonna knit these and purl these ones. I hope this makes sense. But yeah, just go ahead, knit your knits and purl your purls. And I have just finished my ribbing. I did 12 rows in total. Once you've got yours, you will need to switch your needles to 4.5 instead of 4. And I'm also going to be switching cable because this is quite small and I can't properly, see the size of my ribbing. So I'm going to be doing that as well. I'm going to take the stitch marker off just because I'm bringing the new needles and cable. And I'm also going to bring in new color. So if you are making this with 1, that's fine, just carry on. I'm just going to cut off my previous color, leaving a bit of a tail. And now I'm going to grab my next color, which is this lilac. And I'm going to be knitting all of the stitches using my 4.5 needle. So I'm going to go into my first stitch. I'm going to wrap my new color, making sure I also have enough of a tail, and I'm gonna knit my first stitch. Everything's gonna be a bit loose because you are just bringing a new color in, so don't worry about it. Go ahead, knit your next stitch, and this is what you will do with all of your stitches. When you finish your first round, just put the stitch marker back on, and from here you're gonna continue working knit rounds until your vest becomes long enough for the waist part. So basically up until the armhole, and this is where we will separate into front and back to shape the armholes. So do your rows, and if you are using multiple colors, you can either do the same amount of rows for each color and do stripes in that way, or just change color anytime you want, which I'm gonna do as well. So I'm gonna be changing color anytime, meaning I will have different amount of rows for each color. From here, just go and knit all of your stitches around and do this row until it's long enough. Now once you've got your waist part long enough, this is 66 rows for me in total, including the ribbing. This is where I'm gonna separate it into front and back. And to do that, I'm gonna remove my right needle. So if I grab my work this way, I'm gonna be removing this needle, and I will switch it with a stopper. I'm then gonna grab an extra cable with a stopper, and I'm gonna put my needle on this one. I have removed my stitch marker because I'm not gonna need it now, and I'm gonna count half of my total stitches, which is 100 because I had 200 in total, and I'm gonna place a stitch marker to separate these two. And I just did that. So yeah, count half of your stitches, place a stitch marker, and now with your new cable, you're gonna work this half side. So I'm gonna do my 100 stitches doing knits, but basically knit until you reach your stitch marker. When you finish your half stitches, you can take the stitch marker out Then take this left needle off and switch it with a stitch stopper. So I'm just gonna take this off of my new cable and switch it on. It might be hard to show you this, but basically my stoppers are on the side. I didn't work my knit stitches, and my needles now are on this side where I just worked my stitches. So this side will remain unworked until this side is finished, which is the front. Since the work is now in rows, not in rounds, I just turned my work, and for the next row I'm gonna do purls. So I'm gonna purl all of the stitches. Now once you've finished your purl row, from here is gonna be 2-row repeat, which I'm gonna show you now, but before that I'm gonna change my color. So I'm cutting the old one and I'm gonna bring in the new. So what you want to do is you want to knit your first stitch, which is going to be loose a bit, but yeah. And now once you knit your first stitch, you're gonna go and slip one, slip your second, put it back in on your left needle, and going through the back loops of both those stitches, knit them together like this. Then you're gonna knit till you have 3 stitches left. And once you come to the last 3 stitches, you're gonna knit these 2 together. So go as to knit and knit them both, and then just knit your last stitch. Then turn your work, and the next row is just gonna be purls again. So purl all of your stitches. I'm gonna do mine, and I'm gonna show you the decrease row one more time. Okay, I just did my purl row, and these 2 rows that you just did are gonna be your repeats. So knit row where you do decreases, 1 at the beginning and 1 at the end. So this first one is knit 1, slip, slip, knit, and the last one is when you have 3 stitches left is knit 2 together, knit 1. But I'm gonna show you this one more time. To start, you want to knit your first stitch. Now for the next 2, go in as to knit and slip the stitch off. Same thing with the other one, go as to knit and slip the stitch off. Bring them back on your left needle and go through the back loop of both to knit it together like so. So that's your decrease done. Now you're gonna knit until you have 3 stitches left. Once you come to the last 3 stitches, knit these 2 together, going as to knit like this, and knit your last one. Then you're gonna purl all of your stitches and repeat these 2 rows until your front panel becomes short enough for your shoulders. So you need to decrease it down to your shoulder length, and having in mind that you will add armhole ribbing, so keep some allowance for that. But yeah, basically keep doing the creases row until this is small enough to be your shoulder length. And I have now finished doing my decreases. So I started with 100 stitches, I decreased down to 54, and I made my last 4 rows, so knit purl of just doing all stitches, so no decreases, and I ended up with 54 rows in total. So this is how it looks. Now this is my shoulder length, but I'm leaving some allowance for the ribbing that's gonna be done for the armholes. Now once you're happy with how this looks, we will be adding shoulder pieces. they will add some length for the armholes as well. I'm gonna start with 12 stitches and I'm gonna do some decreases, then I will end up with 8 stitches for each, but I'm gonna show you this. Now the first thing you want to do is to decide how many stitches you want to start with. Again, I'm gonna be doing 12 for each, and just to start, I'm gonna knit my first 12 stitches. So that is 12. Now I'm gonna bind off all of the stitches in the middle until I have left another 12. To finish off, you want to knit 2 stitches, so 1 and 2. And now you're gonna pull this one through the second one. So you can just go in with your left needle, grab that second stitch and bring it over, like so. Now ignore those 12 stitches, imagine you have this one, you need another one, so go ahead, knit 1. You again have to go into the second one with your left needle and bring it over. You again have 1, gonna go ahead, knit another one, so you have 2, and again bring it over, like so. This is what you will repeat until you have the same amount of stitches left as for your first shoulder. Once you finish your cast off, you will have this last stitch left. So put it back onto the left needle, like so, and knit these first 2 together. So go as to knit through both of them and knit it, then knit remaining ones, and this is how both of your shoulders will look like. So we will be working on this one now because we have the yarn here, and we will come back to this later on. Now you want to turn your work and purl all of the stitches. Now turn your work again to your right side, and from here it's gonna be 2 row repeat. I'm gonna repeat these 2 rows 4 times, meaning I will have 4 decreases after that, but you can do as many as you want depending how thin you want this shoulder piece to become. Mine is gonna be 8 stitches. Now to show you these 2 rows, you want to go ahead and knit your first stitch. And then in these 2, it's gonna be the crease. So go as to knit and slip the first stitch, go as to knit and slip your second stitch, and put them back on. So what you are initially doing is just turning your stitches, and then you want to go through the back loop of those 2 stitches like this and knit them together. Now you're gonna knit till the end. Turn your work and do purls, so no decreases when you are on your wrong side. I'm gonna do mine and I will show you how to do the crease row one more time. Again, for the crease row, you want to start by knitting the first stitch, then go as to knit and slip the stitch, go as to knit and slip, bring them both back on. So that's 1, 2, and go through the back loops and knit them together. Then you're gonna knit remaining ones. You will then do your purl row and repeat these 2 as many times as you need. So that's my second repeat. I'm gonna do 2 more and I will come back then. And I have now finished my decreases. This is how it looks. It is 10 rows in total because the first 2 don't count as decrease. So basically knit and purl, and then 8 rows of knits with decreases and purls, if that makes sense. So now I'm just gonna do knit, purl until this is long enough to fit my front And also have in mind that you will be adding ribbing, so it's gonna make the neckline smaller. So make enough rounds for you to fit it, which you can try on by just basically adding it against yourself, or you can basically put it against your sweater, vest, or anything else, just to see how many rows you would need to do. I'm gonna do mine and I'll show you how to bind off once again. And I did my shoulder. I basically added another 10 rows of just knits and purls, so I have 20 in total for this front piece, and this is where I'm gonna finish off. So to do that, you want to start by knitting the first 2 stitches, and then you want to pull this first one through the second one, then knit 1 so that you have 2 at all times, and you want to pull it through, then again knit 1, pull through, knit 1, pull through, knit 1, and so on until you cast off all of your stitches. When you finish, you want to yarn over and pull it through to secure it. Then grab some tail for sewing later, because we will be using this yarn strand for sewing. And now for your second shoulder, you want to grab it from the wrong side, because we already did knit when we binded off this middle. So I'm just gonna go as to purl, reattach my yarn, and purl all of these stitches. And from here again, you're gonna do 2 row repeat, 1 with decrease, 1 row of purl, until you decrease to the same amount of stitches as the other shoulder. But to do the shoulder, decrease is on this side, so where the collar is, so you will need to knit until you have 3 stitches left to begin it. I'm gonna do that as well. And once you have 3 stitches left, you're gonna knit these 2 together. So go as to knit through both of them, knit them together, and then knit your last stitch. Then you're gonna do your row of purls, and again you will do your decrease. So knit until you have 3 stitches left. Once you have 3, you're gonna knit these 2 together. So go as to knit through both of them, knit it together, knit your last stitch, and then you're again gonna do your row of purls and repeat these 2 rows as many times as you need. I'm gonna do that for another 2 repeats, and then I'm gonna do 10 rows of knit and purl to match my other shoulder piece. And I have finished my other shoulder piece. I also cut off a bit of a tail for sewing. And now you're gonna do pretty much the same for your back panel. So you will reattach your needles here. You're gonna start with knit round, then purl, and from there you're gonna do the same amount of decrease as you did for the front. But when you do come to the shoulder pieces, you don't want to make them as tall as the front, because the back panel does not have a deep neckline. So for example, my decreases took up 10 rounds for both of these, and then I did another 10 rounds. So maybe for the back panel I would only do decreases, and then these 10 rounds would be made in full prior to the shoulders to compensate for the length. But basically, yeah, do your rows until you are here, and then you can decide how many rows you want to switch it up so that your shoulder pieces are smaller. And I have finished my back panel as well. Now if you look at it, you'll see that the back panel has more rows in full and then fewer rows for the shoulder pieces. So what I did was I did 12 rows for the back, while for the front I had 20. That means that I had to add an extra 8 rows for this part. to make sure that they are the same amount of rows at the end. Now you will need to grab a tail from the front panel that you have left, and you will need to seam those two together. To do that, I'm going to be using mattress stitch, and it's very simple. You basically go grab the stitch from one side, grab a stitch from other side, and go back and forth with one and the other. So just grab your pieces, and just because my tail is here, I'm gonna go into the other one and I will grab my first stitch like this. So I'm gonna go in and pull the yarn, then I'm gonna go into the first on my other panel, and this is what I will repeat. So I'm going into the back panel, second stitch, front panel, second stitch, back panel, third stitch, and front panel, third stitch. And just like that, I'm going to repeat until I have no stitches left. This is how it will look. You're gonna go onto your wrong side and hide the tail in. So I'm just gonna go into the seam that I just created. Once you're done, cut it off and repeat the same with your other one. Now once you have this seamed, you will need to do collar and armholes ribbing, which is basically the same thing. So I'm going to show you with one of this. What you will need to do is to basically pick up stitches around and make sure that it's multiples of 4, because again it's 2x2 ribbing. Same for the collar, and I'm going to show you this with armhole. But when you do go ahead and do your collar, you want to start at either side of the shoulder seams, so either here or here. Go around, pick up your stitches. Here you can see your stitches clearly, but these sides, each row is your one stitch. But yeah, I'm gonna show you with this armhole here, and I'm gonna start where the armpit is. I have my 4mm needles with 40 centimeter cable. I'm gonna find my very first stitch here, and I'm gonna do it with the orange yarn, same as I did for the bottom ribbing. So yeah, just grab your yarn and bring it through the first stitch. Make sure you have enough tail to hide it later. And from here, just go into your next stitch, pick up your yarn like this, and repeat this all around. And I just finished picking up my stitches, so I'm gonna put a stitch marker on to mark beginning of the round. And I've got 140 stitches in total, which is multiple of 4, so I'm good to go. And to start, I'm gonna knit the first 2 stitches, then I'm gonna purl my next 2, and I'm then gonna repeat this around. So knit 2, purl 2. And once you're done with your first round, you're gonna repeat this as many times as you want to create as thick ribbing as wanted. And I will meet you at the end to bind off. And I have now finished my rows for the ribbing. I did 6 rows in total, and I will be casting off. So I took my stitch marker, and to cast off ribbing wise, you're always going to knit your knits and purl your purls. So to start, you want to knit the first 2 stitches and bring the second one over. Then you need another stitch, so the next one is purl and bring it over. Then again, the next one is purl, so I'm gonna purl that. Then I'm gonna bring my second stitch over, like so. And just like that, you're gonna cast off. So you always have to have 2 stitches, and you always knit your knits and do purls for your purls. So I'm gonna knit my next one to have 2 and bring this second over the first one. Again, knit 1 and bring it over. So I'm going to do that all around to cast it off. Once you're done, you're going to pull your yarn through, cut it off with a bit of a tail, hide the tail in, and repeat the ribbing for color and your other armhole. Now once you've finished your vest, and if you are brushing it out, you will need a wire bristle brush. This is specifically made for wool brushing, but if you don't have that, the brushes that you use for peg grooming that have wire bristles would work as well. You just don't want to use plastic ones. And to brush it out, I would recommend going in sections. So pick up a section, brush it out, move on to the next one, and so on and so on. It's going to be brushed down the vest like this and never sideways, so you never want to brush this way. For the brushing itself, I'm holding my vest so it doesn't move much, and I'm just slowly brushing it out like this. And I'm just going to repeat this all over until I'm happy how it looks. Once you're done brushing it out, this is how it looks. You might have a bit more fluff depending on what look you're going for, or a bit less than mine. But yeah, this is it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, don't forget to hit subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you in my next one.